Hey guys, what's going on? Jake Ryan is Epic here, and I'm going to be talking about Survivor Series 2000. Now, in my previous video, I talked about how Stone Cold Steve Austin got run over by Rikishi. Well, in this Survivor Series, we learned that Rikishi was being controlled by Triple H. I know, no shocker. Now, at the end of this Survivor Series, we had a big surprise twist, which I will talk about in a few minutes. Let's talk about Survivor Series 2000. Now, the first match was TNA, Test and Albert, or Jason Albert if you watch on NXT, and Trish Stratus versus Crash Holly, Molly Holly, and Steve Blackman. The Hollies and Steve Blackman won. Steve Blackman's character is just so hardcore, like, he is like the lethal weapon, like, he just does not care, but the WWE just messed it up with him. They didn't give him any push, and they forced him up with Al Snow. It was like fire, ice, no pun intended. The Hollies and Steve Blackman ended up winning. Now, the next match was K-Quick or R-Truth, or Around the Truth Killings if you watch old TNA, Road Dogg, Chyna, and Billy Gunn versus the Radicals. Now, the Radicals consisted of Perry Saturn, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit. These are like technical wrestling gods. I mean, they just like ran circles around the other team. They ended up winning, but it is probably a very technical match if you're a fan of those, but it was still a very entertaining match, to say the least. And especially hearing Jerry the King Lawler say, "Latino hate!" He's like... But anyway, the next match was Chris Jericho versus Kane. I thought this was going to be a little bit of a squash match. I'm not saying Jericho's not capable, but Kane is just on a kind of a roll at this point, and I kind of expected it to be a squash match, but it kind of wasn't. It was like very back and forth, but Kane ended up winning with the chokeslam. The next match was Hardcore Holly versus William Regal for the European Championship. Now, William Regal, his character in this, was definitely, he definitely did not feel natural. I mean, like, in 1998 at the Deadly Games tournament, he was Steven Regal, and he was the real man's man. He came out wearing a hard hat and a plaid shirt and to some, like, Gunsmoke music. But here, he was the goodwill ambassador who just basically told people what was wrong with them. It just completely did not fit the William Regal that we know today. Anyway, Regal ended up retaining the title by a disqualification when Hardcore Holly just snapped and nailed him with the belt. The next match was Rikishi versus The Rock, where The Rock ended up winning with the People's Elbow. Now, Rikishi, after the match, ended up hitting The Rock with 4 bonsai drops, which must have, like, concaved The Rock's chest, because that was insane what Rikishi did. Rikishi is definitely, I think, was a little more edgier as a heel than a face, but that's just my opinion. The next match was Ivory versus Lita for the women's title. Now, for those of you who do not know this faction, the Right to Censor, Ivory is a part of this, they're basically Jehovah's Witnesses. They come out in these suits and ties, and they basically reject the Attitude Era. And Ivory comes out looking like she came out of Amish country, I swear to God. But she ended up retaining when Steven Richards intervened. That was Steven Richards from the BWO for the old ECW crowd. The next match was Kurt Angle versus Undertaker for the WWE title. Kurt Angle ended up winning when he used a duplicate of himself to dupe The Undertaker into doing a last ride on the duplicate, and he ended up and came from behind with the roll-up. The next match was Team Edge and Christian versus Team Hardys. The Hardys ended up winning, which it was a very fast and very good match, and there were table spots in there, which I always love table spots, because the Hardys and the Dudleys were on the same team, and you know there's tables involved when the Dudleys are involved. But the next match was definitely my favorite. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Triple H in a no disqualification match. Now, this surprising twist came into play, but I'll get to that shortly. But the match itself was very good. It was definitely the bare bones of a no disqualification match. But the funniest part was when after Stone Cold nailed Triple H with a chair that busted him wide open, he grabs a cooler and drinks a Steve Weiser, and he looks at the cameraman and says, "What? I'm thirsty." Just Stone Cold does not care. He just is content to beat people up and drink beer. That should have just been his character. If he had just done that, he would have gotten into the Hall of Fame, even if he hadn't won the WWE Championship. But this match ended up being a no contest, but Stone Cold definitely won because at the last Survivor Series, Triple H and Rikishi ran Stone Cold over. But the tables definitely turned in this one. Triple H got into a car and was looking to run over Stone Cold again. But Stone Cold got into a forklift, lifted the car up above the ground, and dropped the car with Triple H in it, and it crashed into the ground. Now, you know that Triple H was definitely not in the car, but it was still a cool spot because you got to saw Triple H get flattened in a Lincoln and Stone Cold driving the car. This was further proof that Stone Cold just did not care. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making them. Please follow me on all the social media outlets and like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. Until next time.